Next up, treasurer's report, Mr. Newport.
Good evening, everybody. October was a really good month from a revenue and expense standpoint. Look there at the summary page, see that the general fund balance is up nearly $115,000. That is without any property tax distribution in October. So I think that doesn't happen often. More evidence of the really strong revenues that we're seeing. As far as the investment pool situation, it's more of the same and trends going the same direction. You probably heard that the Federal Reserve increased the Fed funds rate another 0.75% last week. I am continuing to do what I've been doing for the last several months. It's trying to invest long-term. We bought one or two more $1 million 5-year treasuries since last month. So if you see the weighted average rate obviously continues to rise, the weighted average maturity, and I used to report that in days. Now I'm reporting it in months because for the first time in history, it's past 12 months. It's more than a year. So weighted average maturity of our investment portfolio is now at 15 months. That's all I had with regard to the investments. Property tax collection season is over. We had the tax sale on October 27th. Final distribution was made in early November, so you'll see that will be reflected next month. So that's all I have. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for the treasurer? Looks like you get off easy.
All right.
All right, thank you. Next up, administration financial report, Dan.
We'll be quick tonight. Again, another really good month for, as Kurt mentioned, on the revenue side, revenues are up 8% in the general over last October. We didn't have a property tax disbursement this month, but we once again continued to see big sales tax, big income tax, other taxes. So again, good news there on the revenue side. You can see here, so these numbers are through October for the major revenues. Just really over where we thought we'd be, 40% on sales tax, which is really astounding. 44% income tax, 240% on personal property replacement. So this is something that always, prior to 2020, the PPRT revenue line item was always $400,000 a year. We got a huge disbursement in October, and so FY 2022 is already at 1.7 million, which is just really unreal. The local use tax, this is the one where our projections probably played out pretty well for the year. We're at 8%. This is the one where they moved some of the local use tax. The online sales used to show up here, and so for a couple of years we had really big numbers here. Starting last summer, those online sales tax now is going into the sales tax side line item, so that's where we're seeing them now. Expenditure side, not much has changed. We are up 2%, which is right where we'd expect to be. It's right where the budget was from 21 to 22. And so, that's the report. One more. Next month's report will be the tentative final report. It's unaudited, but it will be kind of that year-end snapshot of where we ended the year. And happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Dan? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Dan. New business. We have resolution. I need a motion to approve resolution 2272 through 2281, sale of surplus property. Motion by Mr. Riley, seconded by Mr. Larson. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, I need a motion for the fiscal year 2022 financial audit engagement letter. Is that a motion or is this just information?
So we would just ask for, we typically bring these back just to do a motion. We entered into an extension with Whitley for another 3 fiscal years. This is, I believe, the second year of the extension. And so the county board approved that agreement in 2021, but each year we like to bring back the engagement letter just to be transparent about the audit. And so, yeah, we would ask for a motion just to bring that forward to the county board for approval.
Okay, so can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Larson, seconded by Mr. Riley. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, 7.3, RP-45-2022 Beto replat. Izzy?
Thank you.
Court?
This is a replat, which will be combining 2 lots in Wellswood Hills subdivision. So the site is located at 10066 Tanglewood Circle in Belvedere. So as I said, this will be combining both of the parcels in this subdivision. So there are no new entrances being proposed. The house is already built on one, and they just want to extend towards that other parcel that you see there on the screen. There should be no alterations to the stormwater drainage system that's currently in place. Comments were forwarded to the appropriate agencies. Mr. Mike Dixon is here from the Belvedere Township. I know he had some comments, and also Mr. Beto is on the line as well.
Okay. Mr. Dixon, did you want to address anything?
All I wanted to make sure is that, like she said, the stormwater actually goes through that property, and I wanted to make sure he didn't alter that and try and push it out towards the road or into the road. And I wanted him to be aware that he needs to make sure that if he's going to put any kind of building or pool or whatever he's putting on the north side of that building on his house, that he makes sure he builds up like a wall or a berm or something, landscape, whatever he's going to put their tree to make sure that water, because that can overflow and cover that property over by the road. And so I want to make sure he had that prepared for that, if that ever happens, that he doesn't limit whatever he puts out there.
Sure.
Because it's a natural drainage area, he can't change that. So
Okay.
that's what I want to make sure he was aware of and make sure he took care of.
Okay, perfect. Questions for staff or Mr. Dixon right now? Mr. Riley?
All the things that Mike just said, does that need to be, do we have to have that noted somewhere, or it's all in here?
I'm assuming, Izzy, you've been through that with Mr. Dixon's comments. You've been through that with Mr. Beto?
Yes.
Okay, so he's aware of all that.
So, yeah, so we can talk about Mr. Beto making a statement, like writing a statement. We can even possibly put a note in the final
I
plat.
will get it ready because
There you go.
I don't have a problem down the road.
Okay, that'd be perfect if we could do that. Absolutely. Any other questions for staff? Elisa, did you have some?
That was what I was going to ask.
Okay.
Just so we have some documentation.
Okay. Anything further for staff or Mr. Dixon? Mr. Beto is on the line.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Beto. Would you like to make any comments?
Yeah, just to say that we've employed, not only the pool contractor, but Arc Design and Resources. They've done multiple surveys on both lots. And I'm also using Tree Care Enterprises, which is a well-known landscape contractor in the area with, 40 plus years experience. We've got multiple retaining walls. We're using large format stone that we'll be getting from Benson Stone. So huge stones that are, 500 to 1,000 pounds a piece. And we're going to be using them for drainage, but also, as decorative as well. We're going to put in extensive landscaping once the pool's completed. Even on my main lot behind my house, there's drainage issues, and I put in a dry creek bed. So drainage is something that's very important to me. I think that we're going to do it in as responsible a way as possible. And, from our end, I think we're being counseled well by the people in our corner, and I think it'll go really well. And I think if you guys were to see it, that you'd be happy with the final product with regard to drainage and, not having any runoff or anything unintended.
Okay, thank you. Did you hear Mr. Dixon's comments? Or you're familiar with those, what he was talking about?
I could only hear bits and pieces. He was cutting out a little bit on my end. I apologize.
Okay. Mr. Dixon, do you want to maybe get the microphone and just repeat so Mr. Beto can hear that? I just want to make sure he's comfortable with what you're talking about. Use the yellow mic there if you could.
Like I said, all we wanted to make sure is that you were aware of the drainage, where the drainage ditch goes through on the north side of your property by the road, and that cannot be altered. And I wanted to make sure that you had proper, whatever, like retaining walls or berms or whatever put in place between your new pool and that drainage ditch to prevent any problem down the road if it should happen to flood, if we get a big rain or something, because there's a lot of water that has and can go through there on a big rain.
Understood.
All that water comes from across the road in Prairie Ridge subdivision, or Boulder Ridge, I'm sorry, but subdivision. So, and there has been issues since I've taken over as road commissioner. I've had issues with a couple of other property owners in that subdivision, and we've had to try to resolve them. And like I said, we don't need any more issues down the road if we can help it.
No, totally understand and appreciate the comments. We will definitely keep it top of mind. Absolutely. We have from day one.
Okay, Mr. Beto, are you comfortable? We're going to add just some of that language to your plat or replat or to the information, put notes in the thing so that that's all on documented record, and you're comfortable with that?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or concerns? Tricia, we don't need to vote on adding that language. We can just instruct staff to do that, can't we?
No, it would be at the next
meeting. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All in favor of moving this to the full county board, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have approval of the Chastain. Thank you, Mr. Beto. Next, we have a Chastain Bridge bundle contract with McHenry County Supplement Phase 1, Phase 2 Planning and Design Engineering. I'm betting that Mr. Crone, do you want to say any words on this, or I know we've talked about this considerably before.
Yeah, I apologize. It keeps coming up, but this, I think the item on board docs or the narrative kind of explains it all. But just to clarify, we originally approved a $330,000 contract with them. It went up $30,000. The bottom kind of explains where all the money's going. We've got so there's two things. So that $30,000 increase is based on a design change. We're going from a box beam to a haunch slab bridge configuration, and then the second item is just basically a follow up with the IGA. We passed the IGA last month. That basically is bundling two McHenry County bridges with R3 Boone County bridges to a 5-bridge package. One thing of interest to note on here is there are 2 bridges at 530. Our 3 bridges is 360. So, and the reason for that is, we do a lot of some of the grunt work in house, where McHenry County is having the consultant do it all. So we just basically try to do minimal work with the consultant. So that's if you notice, that's the big discrepancy on those $2 values. So our 3 we're 120 a piece, where they're 275 or whatever that ends up being. So yeah, there's we're about half the cost, and that's the reason is that we do a lot of the work ourselves. But essentially, this is a new contract, 2 new contracts that I'm asking to be approved for our $30,000 increase for the change in the bridge scope, and then also McHenry County's through that IGA, they're paying back their portion, but it's all one contract for the 5 bridges.
Okay, questions for Mr. Crone? Justin? Did we have a motion and a bidder on this one, or a motion and a second? I don't know that we did.
No.
I moved.
Motion by Mr. Larson,
Second.
second by Mr. Curry. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, I'd ask for a motion to approve the low bidder for the truck chassis bid contingent on fiscal year 2023 budget approval.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Larson, seconded by Mr. Robertson. Discussion, Justin.
So I guess I just point out, this is contingent of our 2023 budget. So this is in that budget. So assuming that everything passes through at the next board meeting, this would be part of that expenditure. I have to do this in a rush based on supply chain right now. It's just ridiculous. I actually got them to slot us a truck last year. So this has actually been over a 2-year process. We're not on the line for anything until we approve this next month. Hopefully if this does get approved next month, then we'd be on the hook. But right now we have no contract on it. I only got one bid. This is from 2 years ago, this is about a 32% increase from our previous truck chassis. I think that's it. This is going to replace a 2005 tandem truck that we have. So,
Questions for Mr. Cronin? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Justin.
thank you.
Next up, we've got R1PC 2023 infrastructure priorities call for projects. That's a discussion. Justin, do you want to join in on this?
I can, yeah.
You want me to kind of go through?
Sure.
Justin said, and Justin, feel free to chime. I'll just kind of go through I believe every year R1PC solicits a call for projects for infrastructure. So you can see the categories. It could be patient roads and bridges, water, sewer, vertical infrastructure, public transit, energy, communications, other. So really broad scope that they're looking for. Asking for the county to submit 5 priority projects for consideration as they put together kind of a region-wide list of priorities. Justin had taken a shot at listing out a few high priorities. And so I'm just going to go through some of them. Number one was the 76 Town Hall Road Extension Project, which is roughly 15 million. Number two could be a fiber optic connection ring among county facilities. So it would be getting fiber really up to the facilities that are on Squaw Prairie and 76 near the Highway Department, Animal Services, Maple Crest. Number three, the Piscasaw Creek Bridge Bundle is an option. There's a new Highway Department building that's been planned for a number of years with a solar rooftop that's on this list. Some of the other projects that we've talked about and we could add would be, you heard last week, we talked about the public safety building back in early 2000s. They did a analysis on doing a renovation or expansion. And so that could be a large project that we might want to consider on this list. Something smaller that we've talked about, but I know has been talked about for a number of years would be a dedicated public transportation facility right now. It's all housed at the Council on Aging, and I know that they would love to have some of that space freed up for their programming. The other option that we've talked about would be something, not necessarily the county, but something from an economic development standpoint, prioritizing utility infrastructure south of I-90, which would benefit both the city and the county if there were to be a large project to locate there. And so I think tonight, and Justin, feel free to go through, talk more about those projects or your projects as well. I think what we want to do is just have a discussion. We do have to get back to R1 by tomorrow. And so wanting to have the discussion tonight, settle on 5 projects and yeah.
I think one thing I'll add to that too is this is federal money, so you want to go big. In fact, actually, that $500,000 fiber optic ring is probably some. You know what? It's a thing to consider. Last year was the first year that R1PC put this priorities list together. We had a bill, there's a bill that went through with, so these get submitted and then, the legislators go through and do their negotiations or their work on these projects and bring different things to the table. Our town hall project last year was put on into a bill. It didn't go anywhere, but it was put into there. So that one was selected. That was 30 million. I had a lot of other county engineers call me up. They're like, well, how the hell did you get 30 million, put into there? And that's just what we ended up doing where, McHenry and DeKalb and Winnebago, each one of them had, a couple $1 million, a few $1 million projects. We had a $30 million project on that. I think that's a good one to still focus on. I reduced it down to 15 because of the scope, based on strategies with the city and what they're doing with Appleton Road on a grade separation for the railroad tracks. It's in the best interest of everyone that we only focus on Newburgh North. That 15 million is actually, as I was looking at that, that's probably a little too short. When I do that, I'd probably raise it up a little bit more, reevaluate everything, especially with price increases here. So, but certainly that is a big one. If you look at a lot of what other people are submitting to other counties or other agencies, a lot of them are infrastructure related to development. So whether it's water, sewer, this roadway, for future development. So I think that's kind of probably where you want to target. I don't think we want to, I did put in there the Piscataquis Bridge bundle. That's probably better suited. That's a reconstruction, and that's, although those are important, that's probably not something that's going to spur a lot of economic development. So I think that we probably want to, focus around those things. We were able to submit 5 projects. We definitely want to throw 5 out there. And like Dan said, there's a wide range of different options that we can do, and the public safety building too is probably another good one to consider. I did notice that last year's, that's what Dan has up on there. Last year, I think the Winnebago County submitted a public service, or the city of Rockford, and theirs was 20 some million or something. So, that one was not part of the ones that got onto a bill. But again, I think having economic development opportunities is probably one of the key considerations for this priorities list.
One of the things, Justin, just to add on, and this reminded me of it, but last year, let me pull ours up. So last year, one of the projects that was on our priorities was the Graham Road extension. So this is south of I-90. When I talked about water, sewer, utility infrastructure, it's not necessarily something that the county would do, but the Graham Road thing would be something kind of in that same corridor. Is that something that we could look at doing continue to look at Graham Road, and then if the city were to submit something with water sewer, does that make sense?
So the city's number 2 project is water and sewer along Irene Road, South 90. So they're to bring Four Rivers up. That's their number 2. Their number 1 project is the grade separation of Appleton Road, and then their number 2 project is water and sewer down on Irene Road there to bring Four Rivers up to the base, up to the edge of the Belvedere Basin. So yeah, the Graham Road, I put that on there last year, and that was kind of a rough thing, but it would basically reflect a lot of the Chrysler and all their facilities on the north side. With a frontage road, Graham Road would be a good frontage road to connect Genoa Road with Irene Road exits, and it would be more or less a south frontage road of I-90 to spur economic development. And we'd probably want to do that before things start happening on the south side of I-90, which that could be tomorrow, it could be 10 years, 20 years. We don't know, but I think that's something that, and I'm kind of stepping out of my realm, but that's something that I would guess that would help development and, you'd want to do it sooner than later to make sure that, the infrastructure is there. So.
I like the idea, Justin, I think you and I have talked about supporting the city in some way with the water and sewer south of 90 on Irene Road. Would that be something we would do with, either just put that in as a possibility or, Irene Road reconstruction project or something like that along with Irene to Graham or whatever?
Yeah, no, I think that, and I brought that up to Brent Anderson and that, like I say, that's their number 2 on their list. So it certainly wouldn't hurt anything for us to show regional support, having the county support that.
Yeah. Mr. Kerr?
I guess I don't see the point of Graham Road. You're going to be tearing up a lot of farmland and moving traffic when we have an I-90 corridor off Irene Road. What is the purpose of Graham Road going from Irene to Genoa Road?
Sure. Yeah, I think it just opens up, because right now you have a north-south Irene Road corridor, and then you've got basically a north-south Genoa Road corridor, and to connect those two, you would open up basically, probably 10 times the amount of land available. Maybe it's premature. Maybe you're right. Maybe the farmland is better served to maintain farmland as it is right now. I do know that, a Graham Road, I looked at the comprehensive plan and I think another document, it did show that as being a industrial commercial corridor on the south side of I-90. So that would be, the intent of why I was thinking that would be a good connector.
I just had one more
Go ahead.
The Town Hall Road thing that fascinates me. And that obviously ends at 20 and picks up at 20, right? Or Newburgh. And so you would be going across the conservation and building just a giant bridge is what you're saying.
Well, the one that I'm saying right now, ultimately it would go from 90 up to Spring Creek and 76 is the ultimate goal. And the section that I'm proposing to be considered tonight would be the one from Newburgh to 76 Spring Creek. That would be the north segment is the one that I would be proposing for tonight. So in a portion of that right of way is existing. So IDOT owns a segment of, I think it's 120 foot or 150 foot wide right of way, north-south right of way for this extension, for this project. So, so it does have some established legs, I guess, for that. It's certainly an option to consider.
Where's that adjustment you say between Newburgh and?
Is it this alignment here?
So
because it comes up, you're saying north of 20?
I'm yes. So
that meets up with Belvedere Road, right?
So if we go up to Newburgh.
Yeah, so it's like right.
Yeah.
So there's.
Yep.
And you come down, so it's.
So go across conservation.
There's, as far as I know, it's contiguous to conservation, but it does not. It's right away owned by the state of Illinois conservation. Yes.
Oh. I mean, that would be something I never even thought of. It would be neat, but.
It was designed and it's been on the books for. I want to say, gosh, at least 50 years maybe. And I've got some old maps that were hanging on the wall that, were, they're faded and, but, that's something that has been kind of lingering out there for quite some time, but it's a gigantic project. It's a huge, just crossing the railroad tracks and the river itself. Those two bridges are probably $10 million bridges a piece, so it's not something that, we'd want to do without, some financial support from the feds.
Go ahead.
I just see that doesn't hinder a lot of houses or farm, if that were a project that I'd want to get behind it, I feel like that would be one that, you're not setting people out. And it's a good connection. You either have to go up to Shaw Road or down to Appleton. And if that's going to 4 lanes Here, IDOT obviously is doing that in the next couple of years, I assume.
Yes, yep. Yeah, it'd be a good, Belvedere West, connector, north-south connector. And the intent, and, I'm assuming this is still the case, obviously, if this thing started to move forward, we'd want to talk to IDOT again, but the intent would be that eventually that roadway would be turned over to Illinois Department of Transportation. IDOT would take that roadway, and then that would become the new 76 Illinois Route 76 alignment all the way down to, I would assume, down to 20, and then all the way up to where it ties back into 76, where 76 kind of takes that angle, Spring Creek corner there. And so, and then the old 76, they would turn over to local agencies. And then this new road would become a state route.
Any other questions for Justin? Does the board have any specific projects they'd really like to see included in it, in this list, these 5? I mean, I like the idea of a new public safety building. I like the idea of the 76 extension or town hall. I like the idea of water sewer south of I-90.
Just maybe as a suggestion, we could add, so right now we have 4 projects listed. One of them being that smallish fiber project. What if we took that off? Not that it's not important, but there's probably, we could look at using ARPA funding to do that project. We could look at applying for maybe a state grant.
Mm-hmm.
So what if we took that project off and then added kind of the economic development project south of I-90, whatever we want to call it. And then what if we added the PSB renovation expansion project? That's just an option, I guess.
Yep. I think so.
And the PSB, was that 25 million is what the sheriff is running on numbers?
Number was 16.
50 million.
Yeah, that's what I knew he upped it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I'm sure and that was several years ago.
I think it was 2004. It was when the county was growing and they were looking at, I don't know if we need an expansion. We need some expansion. I don't know if we need expansion to what they had, at that point, they were looking at the county's growth curve and saying we'd have 80, 90,000 people by now and we'd need X more additional staff. So I think there needs to be some expansion, but yeah, we can work on a number. It probably should be something higher than the 15 or 16, but 25.
Do you want to put that form together then for that project?
Get it? Yeah.
I can do the other ones. Okay. So the economic development, we're going to do, water, sewer, Irene, and then potentially a frontage, between Genoa and Stone Quarry.
Sure.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next up, budget review. I won't say it's your last chance to ask questions, but your next best last chance to ask questions on the budget or current concerns, make comments. Tom, you look
I
at something?
just wondered, I did ask a question of Dan, and it was looking for around the health department and the professional service budget. It just seemed like a really big number that was increased, and maybe what's that for? I guess is generally what I'm asking.
Yeah, let me pull up. Amanda had sent an email on that. Let me just pull it up here.
You just said professional services or something is what it was called. It's kind of a big bucket.
Okay, let me pull up their budget here. Okay, so the question, Mr. Wahlberg, I think the question was about this line item, other professional services. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so I do have just some info from Amanda. talked about. Here are the major items that encompass that line item. So Department of Justice federal monies for the core sort and cap grant for the following contract payments. Belvedere Police Department, Community Law Enforcement Officer, the Rosecrans Jail Behavioral Health Staffer, the Remedies Community Mental Health Clinician, the Rosecrans Community Mental Health Clinician. There's a payment in there for the Boone County the Health Department Medical Director Malpractice Insurance, and then also Boone County the Health Department Medical Director stipend. She did want to know, I'm sorry. So last fiscal year, we made a budget revision partway through the fiscal year, and all the federal DOJ grants were moved under the Board of Health budget. So that's really the primary reason for that big increase. In prior years, these core sort and cap grant contracts, so Belvedere Police, Rosecrans, Remedies, those were included in a separate fund. And this year, that's all being rolled into the Board of Health fund. Reporting is something that they requested, and we met with the treasurer and Carrie Campen in the health department. And so for this year, all that funding has been rolled in here. And so that's really the main reason for that large increase.
The 22 budget was 37,000, correct?
They added a lot of positions, is what they did. And
Yeah, I'm just clarifying. So we're going from 37,000 to 446,000, correct?
what's right?
Am I reading this right?
Are those, a lot of those are paid for with grants, aren't they?
Most, I think all of them are.
Yeah, so it shows up in here as an increase, which it is, but it's an increase. It's an increase, but it's all grant money that they've received for those positions for, I don't know.
So those positions, they added those positions with the knowing of the grant existing, with the mental health stuff, with the core stuff, with the partnership with Rosecrans. Without those, I don't think that would exist. So as they evolved, what I know is that with those grants and the hard work that they did to get those grants, they were able to get obviously a lot more help. So without those grants, that's what it would look like. But yeah, I see it.
Yeah, so is there somewhere in the income category or these grants or no? I mean, in the budget? I mean, is that a?
Yeah, I think they're shown in revenues. I think it's shown.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, the grants,
Is it?
there's a, and I don't know where it's at. There's a spot on the budget that shows all the grants that come in, revenues coming in.
And you could, so I have it pulled up on the screen so you can see. So they had a large increase in expenditure. So I'll go back to the expenditures page here. The 2022 FY22 expenditures were 1.2 million. FY23, they're proposed to be 2.3. So there's that big jump there. When we go back to the revenue side here, you can see the revenues went from 1.2 up to 2.3. The vast majority of that was a huge increase in the state and federal grants. So that's what they're saying is, and I pulled up last year's budget here, but last year we showed these expenditures in a separate fund, this federal opioid grant fund. The health department had requested that fund essentially get rolled into their budget because they manage that fund. And for their tracking purposes, that's was something that they requested. It's easier for them. And so that's really why we're shifting those costs from a separate fund now into their Board of Health fund for this year.
You're increasing your revenue by $1 million, roughly.
Yeah.
Seems like it's 1%.
Perfect. Further questions for the budget? Mr. Riley?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you set forth to really kind of look over this thing, and I'm assuming that now's the time to bring things up, like you said.
Sure.
I'm going through it, and I know I'm probably going to hit a nerve, especially with you, Mr. Chairman, but I'm looking at page 8 on the general fund. And believe me, I've done some homework. I've been educated quite a bit. Page 8, growth dimensions. Last year, or the year before, their budget was 30. We reduced that to 15 this last year. I see we're looking at a 2023 going back up to 30, which is exactly what you said you would like to see done. And I've still got a few other things to look into. I think Pam's done a fantastic job this last year in helping getting us more up to speed on what growth dimensions is, what it does, and how it does help our community. I'm just going to just throw it out there, instead of jumping it right back up to the 30, perhaps there's the Veterans Assistance Commission could use a little bit more. Maybe instead of going to the full 30, we $20,000 increase for this year, or 20,000 for the budget for this year. And hopefully that Growth Dimensions will continue to get our reports to us like they've been doing, and continue the great work that they've been doing as well. And I know there's some big projects that they brought in this last year, and I can't think of enough for that, but with what their funds were before, operating, being like 3 months in advance or ahead, I just think jumping it right back up to the top is where we had it before is just a little much. So I'm just asking for some consideration on that. Otherwise, everything else looks pretty good in my book. So just my thoughts.
Just on the Veterans Assistance Commission, I mean, that's not all the money they get. They've got their, whatever it is.
So they get, I think the levy request last year is 260. And then what this 15,000 does is actually pays for their rent and utility facility. They don't, I actually had a discussion today with Mr. Ryder about this, and they don't, the 15, just about the 15, but the 15,000, that's what they're requesting. They don't, they're good with that number. Not that they wouldn't, on the levy side, but also on the levy side too, they're happy with the 260. We bumped that, it was 258 last year, so we bumped it up a little bit, but yeah. And the Growth Dimensions, the 30,000, that was something that, I included the 30 because that was what Pam had requested, or that Growth Dimensions had requested.
Okay, further questions on the budget? Mrs. Bartel, you had something.
I'm going to kind of agree with Mr. Riley here in Growth Dimensions. That's a pretty big jump. That's the biggest jump in all of them, over $15,000 again. And I guess I'm going to get a little bit nitpicky. I realize Growth Dimensions have brought in 2 big projects, General Mills, and then also they have brought in the new gas station going in out there. But that's all for the city. That's strictly city. City's giving them $50,000. What have they done strictly for Boone County? I mean, what have they done as far as bringing a project with Boone County land? I mean, I know this land has been, annexed by the city, but again, I'm saying, where are the projects strictly for Boone County? You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's the question I have to ask. I mean, our corridor, we have a big area. I want to know, we have all these communities around here. I'd like to see something done, I don't know, up around Poplar Grove, or over around going more towards the interstate. Something in Boone County itself that the city of Belvedere cannot annex. So the property tax and everything like that comes to the county instead of going to the city.
Well, the property tax does come to the county, no matter what, no matter where it's at.
Eventually.
No matter where it's at, the property tax still comes to the county. We still get our property tax. I mean, it doesn't matter where it's at. So in reality, anytime there's a project, if it's in the city of Belvedere, if it's in the city of Poplar Grove, city of Capron, yes, that community, that city wins bigger, so to speak. They get a piece of the pie, but the county still gets a piece of the pie.
Right, I know that.
The county still gets tax revenues and things like that for like the travel center. That's going to be a huge boon for the county, for the sales tax for the county. Because you're still going to have people going by on I-90, but you're also going to have people going by on I-90 stopping and not only buying gas, but they're going to buy,
but we probably
all kinds of things.
We will probably be losing our gas stations on each side of the interstate up there that we now get. Do we make money off that on gas tax?
Sales tax.
Yeah.
Sales tax, that's it. And property tax.
We're going to be losing that, won't we?
But the county gets, or the city gets taxes out of them also. So Will we lose those? Maybe, maybe not. That all depends. We haven't lost any because of the Oasis. I mean,
But
that travel center is going to bring a lot of other things too, as far as
Oasis is.
semi trucks and things like that. So there'll be a lot more traffic coming in there. So we'll see what that does.
That's why I would like to see something coming to the county itself instead of within the city limits of Belvedere.
Mr. Wahlberg.
One last comment, Chairman. I see when we look at the actual for August, is what these actual numbers are, that they have met their budget, they haven't exceeded their budget for 2022. Was that kind of the logic behind that? At 3/4 of a year, they're already at budget that they, you know, maybe to Mr. Riley's point that, you know, if there's a number in between, that would be more realistic or reasonable. It's obviously maybe they need more money, but is 30 the right number? I don't know.
I personally, and I've said this many times, I don't think we give growth dimensions enough money. It's the only avenue that we actually spend money on to try and promote Boone County and business in Boone County and development in Boone County. And we're only spending $30,000. To me, that's kind of crazy. We should be spending a lot more than that to help develop Boone County. And I also understand that counties play only a very specific role in development because we don't offer water, sewer, and those types of facilities and infrastructure that a business like General Mills, like the travel center, like many other businesses want and need. So when those projects do tend to go, they do tend to annex into a municipality so they can get those services. But I still think $30,000 is a drop in the bucket to our $20 million budget for growth dimensions to help promote and grow Boone County. I think that's a very minor drop in the bucket and not near enough, but 30 would be okay. Further questions on the budget? Comments, concerns? Yep, Dan.
So we did have a couple of just random changes that we made that I wanted to highlight tonight, just to be transparent. Find this first one here. Okay, so this is in the building department, which is a department within the general fund. And so Drew Bliss, the senior building inspector, was notified this week that the state of Illinois would no longer be doing plumbing inspections for the county. We can get into the details. I would ask in the future for Drew to be here, but long story short, this was the state service was a service that was provided to the county at no cost. And so this was an old line item. We used to have a part-time plumbing staffer on staff. Is he online? Oh, he is online. Okay, great. We used to have a part-time plumbing staffer as an employee. And so we added $15,000 in the budget to either look at hiring someone or going out to a consultant to perform that service for the county. And Drew, if you can hear me, feel free to add any information.
Yeah, I can hear you, Dan. Yeah, you summed it up pretty well. About 2, maybe 3 years ago, our plumbing inspector resigned and the state stepped up and said, hey, we'll provide you an inspector or inspection services. And they did that at no charge. They did tell me that eventually it would probably come to an end. There's a pending retirement at the state level. So the gentleman that is providing us our services is now going to have to cover from basically Joe Davies County all the way to Lake and then south to Joliet. He just can't handle that type of volume. So, and we're not the only ones that are in this situation. The city of Belvedere is, many other municipalities are being told the same thing. So we need to be prepared to pay someone to provide the service now, whether that is someone that we hire, we have a lot of options that we can go with. We haven't figured that part out yet, but it's important to have a line item to pay someone eventually.
Drew, is $15,000 enough?
I believe it will be. Even if we go with what I think would be the most expensive route, which would be hiring a private company to do this. And I think that is how we're going to have to handle it in the beginning. Their fees are pretty high, but on the other hand, our volume of plumbing inspections is pretty low. So the 15,000, I believe would cover us for the year with the most expensive option. One thing to note, I think it's going to be very difficult to hire an actual plumbing inspector of our own. I've had many conversations with Greg Hunt, that's the plumbing inspector for the state, and he's in an agreement. You know, with the volume that we have, you're just not going to find someone that is qualified, and by qualified I mean a licensed plumbing. A licensed plumber. You have to have a plumber's license to be a plumbing inspector. So for someone to take on that responsibility for what averages about 8 inspections per week, I think it was, per month, sorry. It's going to be difficult. We talked about possibly if the city were to hire someone, maybe we get that person to do our inspections as well. Kind of everything's on the table. But to answer your question, yes, $15,000 I believe will cover us.
Further questions for Drew? Ms. Bartel?
Drew, would it be smart for basically the city and the county to hire one person combined for both, save money for both the city and the county? I know we used to have something like that, and we got rid of that, but I think might be a good idea in this one, since they really don't do a lot of inspections if we combined.
Yeah, yes, I think that'd be ideal.
Yeah. Be a savings on both city and county.
Right.
Okay, further questions for Drew? Thanks, Drew.
You bet.
And other things you wanted to point out?
There's a couple more. All right, so next off, going to the IT budget here. Department 85. Again, this is in the general fund. Right, this year. Okay, so one of the things that we didn't have, and reached out to IT this week and realized that they have been planning on adding replacing a server here at the Logan Avenue Administration Campus in the back server room that needs to be replaced. So we added 10,000 into that equipment line item 604 and just highlighted that change. That was a small change. And then the final change that we made was in the county bridge fund. Let me pull this up here. Okay, so the county bridge fund, the budget that was the budget that was presented last week, it had the expenditures for county bridge was only the 50,000 in maintenance supplies. Just realized that it was an error. We left off the 750 here in construction of bridges. I'm not sure, Justin, what project exactly that is for next year, but really it was just a correction, making sure that we had the 750 in the budget there. So county bridge fund, this line item 562 was that third change.
Questions for Dan? Yeah, I've got one. We've heard from the sheriff and from state's attorney. I don't know if it's their servers or what it is, for downloading this video stuff. Do we need to put money in a contingency account so that if we have to do something there? I mean, thoughts from you, Tricia?
It would really be an IT question. I'm not sure if it requires a whole new server. I am not an IT person. So,
Is that something that can be done off-site, at a server bank or whatever they call them? Yeah, the cloud thing. That's the technical term. I like server bank.
I don't know.
We can reach out to IT. Yeah, we'll get with IT and see. I know it's been an issue that they've been dealing with, and so they might already have, maybe it's already addressed or they have a plan to address it. And so we'll get with them and see.
Yeah, just so that if it does turn into that it's really a bad issue, we don't get a surprise next year that we have to try and come up with the money where if it's in a contingency fund, we've got something there. Mr. Wahlberg?
Two things. So one, that's 25 though, we're going to cameras, right? So we do have a couple of years yet on the Cameron County, right? 25, is that correct?
That is correct.
I know you want to be prepared before you get there, but.
Right, and the city actually uses body cams and we prosecute all the crimes that occur in the city as well. So we're already watching all the body cam, which is part of the problem. And the records department is part of the sheriff's department. So they're the ones who have to gather it and then distribute it. So it's already affecting offices. It's just going to become worse in 2025. It'll basically double what we're doing now.
So it is something to consider sooner or later. The second part was what Justin mentioned about the increased cost of the chassis of the truck, and I know that was a budget item in there. It's in the budget. Is it adequate?
Yeah, it's total budget wise I've got for the truck is 150 for the chassis and 100 for the box. So I think we're going to be good there.
Okay. Super.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Oh, just
Rodney?
one other thing. When are we voting on this? When is this going to be?
Budget will be voted on next week at the board meeting.
Okay, so I'm going to get back to what I was talking about before. Obviously, I'm looking at 20, you're looking at 30. Do I need to make a motion that we amend the budget possibly? Or, we've both had discussions where we need to go from here.
Sure, absolutely. If you want to make changes to the budget, you can do it now, or you can do it next week at the full board meeting. And you make a motion to amend the budget as presented.
I'd like to do that tonight then, because I understand where everybody's coming from. And if I'm the only one that feels this way, then I understand that, but I just as soon do it now. So I'd like to make a motion to the growth dimensions budget for 2023 to 20,000 for fiscal year 2023.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Riley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Bartel. Any discussion? Mr. Larson.
How's their budget doing right now? I know before when we had cut it down to 15, they were more than flush with extra cash that they didn't need. Are they still in that position, or?
I cannot answer that question. I do not know what their budget is right now, what their overall budget.
We've already spent 50,000. That was my point.
I mean, I don't know where their overall revenues are.
Or I forget what it was. I think they had like 100,000 extra or something like that. It was somewhere around there.
I think last year, I think they had about 100,000 or so in reserves. I have no idea what they have in reserves now.
But that's the thing. They really don't need a reserve.
Well,
they're going to get millions of dollars in bank interest off of it. So that's not really the purpose of them having money,
Right. Mr. Curry?
I'd feel better if Pam was in here to be able to maybe explain. Maybe she can, will she be at next week? I'm assuming she'd be at.
I mean, I could certainly tell her that this was on the table and she could explain or make the case.
Just one comment. The question you were asking, Mr. Wahlberg. Last year I looked into it and they were about anywhere from 3 to 6 months in reserves for operating budget. So that's why this was brought up this time last year. Nothing against what they're doing. I mean, absolutely. I 100% agree with the chairman. They do a fantastic job. It's just that with so many other entities in the county that could be working in smaller budgets or tighter budgets. And I know this went before the city as well. I don't think that they changed their budget any, but it is something that we looked at last year, and this is why we made this decision. And I know it wasn't something you supported, Mr. Chairman, I understand that. But again, I'm not looking to keep it at the 15. I think 20 is pretty reasonable. And again, I have to applaud them because they have come to us now with a little more concise reports and more information. It's been much better over the last 12 months, I must say. So just my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay.
If you want me to, I guess if we want to have Pam come, I'm not against that. I can withdraw the motion. We can
do that, and you can make it on next week if you'd like. We can do that. If you want to do that, withdraw that motion. Then we can have Pam here. She can, that's entirely up to you, Mr. Riley. You made the motion. I mean, I think it's fair to at least give her the opportunity to make her case before we cut her budget.
I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay. And Ms. Bartel, do you withdraw the second?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I will let Pam know that discussion has come up. Anything else?
The big thing that's outstanding for this budget would be typically we'd like to get the county board direction on the non-union wage adjustment. And so it's a little bit of a different year with the 8 of the 9 collective bargaining agreements are expiring this month at the end of the month. And so what we typically do with those is we'll just show them status quo because we don't know what negotiations will result in. What we've done it a couple different ways. When we have union negotiations pending, we've still decided on a COLA for non-union, and we've gotten that into the budget and gotten that a part of the budget. And then potentially you could do come back and do an adjustment if that's necessary. And so I guess that's something just to throw out there tonight. Is that something we want to do right now? The budget, unless there's a proposed like a salary adjustment that's a part of the budget. Right now, those salaries for those employees are just showing as status quo. It's just year over year, which they won't be. There'll be an increase, but people are asking, people are wondering about that. And so that's something that I want to bring up tonight and see if we want to. We can amend the budget, change it, and bring it back next week, and we can put in a 3%. We could do whatever the county board's willing to do, but just wanted to throw that out there.
Have you gotten any information from Mr. Kelly at all?
Yeah, what between 3 and 3.5% was kind of where they've seen recently, at least from the union side, from the labor, the contract side, where they've seen those numbers coming in.
Okay. Thoughts from the board? Mr. Curry?
I know we talked, and I think we have to sit down this week or next week with a couple of the collective bargaining group units. But in the past, you said that we have approved a temporary COLA prior to negotiating with the unions. Did that work in the favor, or did that more motivate the unions to kind of step up a little bit more, and then, outdo it? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I would, my opinion on that would be, I think the unions probably see, it's unique this year with the inflation, what it is, with the CPI, what it's been. But I think generally, and Carl, you would know as well, but generally the unions coming in have an idea of kind of where we're going to be. The county on the non-union side has had an idea of where we want to land, and typically they're pretty much in alignment. I'm not sure if in either case it's benefited, you get ahead of it if it's benefited one or the other. Again, it is a bit of a unique year just with the 8% inflation that we've seen for the last 16, 18 months. That's unique. So that might change the dynamic as far as negotiations go, but it's hard to know.
Yeah, I think, obviously we don't want to publish a non-union increase of, 10% and then go into union negotiations and try and get a 3 or 3.5, because that's not going to fly. I guess my gut my gut reaction would be to plan it at 2.5. And then have some contingency money, just seeing where negotiations go. We could show a 2.5 in the budget and then go from there. That's kind of my gut reaction. And I'm sure it's probably going to be in the 3 to 3.5 range in the end, would be my guess. Hopefully not up to 4, but might be. Right?
Yeah, I don't know. We've always tried to stay at around 2, which is usually inflation. I would go for 2%, but instead of 2.5. But then, so you're saying, Dan, that the any COLA increase is not included in our budget here.
Yeah.
So if there is once there is an increase, or if we say we're just going to automatically go 2 or 2.5, is the property tax rates then going to change?
Oh, so just as
have the money basically.
Yeah, that's a great question. So just as a placeholder, we wanted to make sure that we have that cost, because that will increase each department. We wanted to make sure that was baked in. And so if you look at this contingency department right now in the general fund as one example, we stuck, this budget is typically 165,000, depending on what's budgeted there. I think last year we had some back pay budgeted for one of the unions, but right now we have 590 stuck there because that's that personnel increase, making some estimates, but that money, it's not going to affect the levy rates or the bottom line of the budget. It's just a matter of really moving out that fund, showing it, or we'll take it out of here and then show it in each department.
What rate kind of reserve do you have for that? Yeah,
I think
5% in there or something.
I think this is 4%. But the thing to keep in mind is that the collective, there are a few bargaining units that have actual pay
step
tables. And so not only does the tables, there's a COLA, so it might be 2%, but then every year or so they'll also move up a step, which is typically in that 2% range. So that's why it can't just be 2.5 or 3 or 3.5. It's something always more than just the COLA we approve because of those steps. So I think the number that I estimated just right now in general fund is something like 4% as a placeholder.
Okay. Thoughts from board members? Would you like them to figure in a non-union increase? Or just keep it all in contingencies?
A non-union, I'm sorry.
Yeah, non-union.
Before we're even into negotiations, that's what we're talking about?
That's what we're talking about.
I don't think that's a good idea, because if you give them more than what the union is, you're gonna have to bring the union up to that.
Well, that's why we're talking about a 2 or 2.5%. The union, the contracts are going to settle somewhere between 3 and 4% is my guess.
I have to.
So just by putting 2 or 2.5% into the budget, it does show that the non-union people that they are getting an increase of at least that much.
I'd make a motion for 2%.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Larson. Is there a second for that? Second. Second by Mr. Curry. And what that's doing is it's putting something in the actual numbers in the budget line items for an increase. And then there's still money in contingencies should negotiations go to 3.5 or whatever. Go from there. Any other discussion on that?
Which union are you working with right now? UAW?
We're not working with any just yet. There's Teamsters has asked to start negotiations for their 2 units, animal services and building. So hopefully, I think next week, hopefully. And hopefully those go pretty quick. All in favor of the 2%, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
And so just to the clarification, when we communicate that out to, we typically that adjustment then would occur on, when we do a non-union COLA. Again, this is not, the unions depend on the contract negotiations. For the non-union COLA, that would happen 12/1. Is the communication then, this is an initial COLA effective 12/1, and then, round one or round two is TBD, or do we leave it at the 2%? Just something to look at for clarification on.
I think we'll reevaluate that COLA after.
Once everything settles.
Once we have an idea where union negotiations are going. Anything else on budget?
I just,
Yep, sure.
it's not really budget. Yeah, it is budget. I remember Dave Ert standing over there and saying, we are having a hard time keeping people to working for us, including even a janitor. And so when I hear Dave say that, and I'm sure Tricia has fun down there with the attorneys, we have a lot of unions within our county. I think we have to really look into how we're doing our budget and how much we're going to be raising some of these. But there again, I'm going to go back to growth dimensions. We're raising $15,000. I want to stay at no higher than 20 and use that other 10 to either go towards the department, keeping people on there as far as whatever. I don't know. I just don't think we should hand out money without considering all the people that work here for the county.
Okay, anything further?
I have a motion that we take the excess money from growth dimensions and give it to the sheriff's department.
Okay, what's the excess money? Right now it's budgeted at 30,000, and we just talked that we were gonna wait and do anything with that budget until Pam was here to at least talk about it. But if you wanna make a motion.
I want to make a motion to keep growth dimensions, as he said to begin with, at the 20 and take the 10,000 and give that to the sheriff's department. Because you're going to be in going into a contract with them soon from them, and you're going to have to come up with some money to keep people working as jailers and or people cleaning a place. That's the thought.
Okay, motion by Ms. Bartel. Mr. Curry? We need a second.
Yeah, I'm sorry, second.
A second by Mr. Curry? Okay, Mr. Curry.
Are we allowed to just?
Move money?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can
That's what we're doing.
we can do anything with the budget we want to.
But should we negotiate, first of all, the budget of growth dimensions that be voted on and then adding to the sheriff's, right? Should be two separate votes.
We can do it next week.
But at the 20, take the 10, give it to the sheriff.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, do we vote on that first and then vote on an increase of 10,000 to the sheriff? Two separate votes. Do or?
You can do it as one.
Oh.
You can do it as one. That's fine. So yeah, I mean, that's.
I'm just asking because I don't know.
Yeah, I don't see why you couldn't do it as one motion. Discussion on the motion on the floor? Mr. Curry?
I'm not saying that it's not. I really do want to hear from Pam before I make any decision. I'm not saying that I wouldn't even favor Sherry's motion. But I would feel comfortable hearing from Pam as to, and the use, the reserves and stuff like that.
Mr. Riley?
I have no issue with that. We can certainly vote to amend it tonight and certainly have Pam come into next week at the full board meeting, perhaps with a copy of their budget that they have for next year, so we can see where the money is a necessity at this point. Maybe they don't have 3 to 6 months advance in reserves. I don't know. That would be a good time to bring it up, but maybe I withdrew a little too quick before. I'm I get where Sherry's coming from on this, and I'm not so sure that's not another way to look at it, because we could certainly go back and change it next week too, if we're convinced otherwise. So that's my thought.
Further discussion on the motion on the floor, Mr. De La Trinidad.
Yeah, well, to Ryan's point, I think I would like to see the sheriff's department come in to see if they even want the extra $10,000 or how they can use that. So I don't know.
Okay, further discussion? Mr. Larson?
Kind of is like what was mentioned. I think we'd have a better for voting if we had Pam come and speak about it here. I'd prefer to maybe do it after she speaks, but if not, that's fine.
Okay. I'll just make a quick comment. I'm not gonna, you already know my position on growth dimensions. For $10,000 for the sheriff's department, his budget is 5 million. $10,000 really doesn't do a whole lot for the, now if you want to give him $100,000, now he can actually do something. He can buy a couple of cars or something like that. I mean, we're already doing that. That's already in the budget. I mean, I think all the departments are doing pretty well. So that's my personal opinion. All right, let's vote on this. All in favor of the motion at hand to take take growth dimensions budget down to 20,000 from 30,000 and take the additional $10,000 and give it to the sheriff's department, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Aye.
Aye.
Let's do a roll call, 'cause I don't know what it did. Carl Johnson, no. Ray Larson.
Aye.
Ryan Curry.
No.
Tom Wahlberg.
No.
Bill Robertson.
No.
Sherry Bartelt.
Yes.
Rodney Riley.
Yes.
Freddie De La Trinidad.
No.
Motion fails. Anything else in the budget? Mr. Larson?
I'd just like to, if anybody would like to maybe change this again next week after Pam speaks, we'll still have her come in.
I can tell her to come in, absolutely.
And then if somebody wants to make an amendment again, they can do so.
Okay, absolutely. Anything else in the budget, Mr. Riley?
It wouldn't be too much trouble with a copy of the budget for next year. I think would be something for us to really sink our teeth into. I mean, we can request it if she wants to bring it, that's up to her, but I think it would certainly help give us some guidance on whether maybe I'm thinking wrong. That'll help. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else in the budget? All right. Next week, we hopefully pass that. Correspondence, you'll see in correspondence, there's invitation for the Veterans Day celebration tomorrow at the VFW at 10 a.m., I believe.
Yep, 10 a.m. at the.
If you can make it, great. I didn't see anything from UCCI. Dan, anything else or anything?
Oh, just on the tomorrow's program at the VFW, they did say today that depending on the weather, it might be moved inside, and so just it was reiterated that if you'd like a seat, get there 9:45, 9:30, 9:45 to make sure you have a seat. Or also might be standing remotely, so just for the board.
Okay, thank you. Lastly, I would like to pop back into executive session if we could for land acquisition. So I'd ask for a motion for that. Motion by Mr. Larson, seconded by Mr. Curry. Roll call, Carl Johnson, yes. Ray Larson?
Aye.
Ryan Curry?
Yes.
Tom Wahlberg?
Yes.
Lisa Patterson left. Bill Robertson?
Yes.
Sherry Bartelt?
Yes.
Rodney Riley?
Yes.
Freddie De La Trinidad?
Yes.
Okay. That motion carries. We're in executive